Well, it's a good thing that today is Mother's Day, because that's a little bit about what I want to talk about. I think that throughout history, no matter what culture or spiritual beliefs that any group of people may have had, they always have celebrated life as mother. The mother's role in the circle of life is unique. The mother risks her life to bear the child, and then protects sometimes that child with her own life in a variety of ways, and asks nothing in return. As Yogananda was saying in the reading, the true mother. Because we see aberrations in nature all the time. Mothers that, don't act in a motherly fashion and do things that we find abhorrent, things that we find we can't understand. And you look into the animal kingdom, you see, all kinds of things that are, to our minds, brutal and cold. And even in this physical world, certainly in America, we have had many publicized cases where mothers didn't act well. And we know that history in India is filled with circumstances in which things haven't gone the way that we all would have hoped. But if we look at all the things in life that can go wrong, it's a pretty sad tale. But at the same time, underneath all of the ups and downs of life, we do see some incredible stories of beautiful expressions of divine love coming into this world. And there is none greater than not the human mother, but the divine mother. The divine mother that manifests through, it could be a female body, but it also could be a male body. The divine mother manifests in a variety of ways, and most importantly, as the consciousness, as in the reading of love. And I can't think of anyone that has touched generally our lives more with that love than Paramahansa Yogananda. And it's interesting, you think of, I remember through the years, it's quite common for people to look at pictures of Yogananda and say, oh, what's her name? And it's not just the long hair, because many men in recent culture have long hair, and you look at their pictures and you don't go, what's her name? I remember seeing a picture of a muscle builder, and his shirt was off and his chest was just absolutely huge. But laying on his abdomen was a very, very little baby. And the essential message of that juxtaposition of this muscular body with this little baby was one of love. Love is the strongest force in the universe. Normally we think of love as being soft, hugs. But love is the most powerful force, the essential creative and God force in the universe. When we talk about the 8 aspects of God, we talk about one of them is love, but also power. And God is one. That love and that power are the same. But love is also light. Love is also wisdom and understanding. Love is also the sound of mother's voice, embracing the child the infinite Om. We look at the way that God is manifest and we realize that that manifestation can be understood in its essential form, expressed through true love. And the true mother expresses that in the most wonderful ways. But that isn't just the physical body mother. It's the consciousness of the mother. And that's why I brought up Yogananda, because he had not only the strength and the wisdom, but he had the most engaging way of including others. And as his beautiful disciple, Swami Kriyananda, carried on that tradition, and that he embraced people in this way that you felt loved, you felt cared about. And it's important to understand that the love that we're talking about, divine love, is not selfish love. It's not, you're my kid, and you better do what I say, or I'm going to cut you off. Mothers over the centuries have had many techniques for disciplining their children. And no matter what they look like, if they really are a loving parent, not just an angry in the moment parent, then even though they become very upset by any given circumstance, they will always come back to embracing their child, loving their child. And it's only when they don't do that, when things get really out of balance, that things can really go wrong. Today, Mother's Day is celebrated around the world, and it's interesting that the formation of modern Mother's Day, well, relatively modern, if you go back to the 1600s in England, there was a tradition on a certain day in springtime that people would bring these little cakes to mom and celebrate, their mothers. And over the years, this continued in various forms with greater or lesser popularity until after the Second World War. And after the Second World War, leave it to the Americans, we made it commercial. We decided to make money off of it. And so modern Mother's Day is extremely commercialized. In America, you got to send mom chocolates and flowers, and you got to give her a call. If you're not there, you got to call her on the phone. And so Mother's Day is literally the busiest phone day of the year in America. Now, hopefully all of those kids that love mom and call her on Mother's Day have spoken to her a few other times during the year. Yes, we kind of hope, because isn't it a little like self-serving? Even though you're calling mom to celebrate Mother's Day, you're also doing it so you don't get into trouble. Because, if you haven't been calling mom regularly, then it wouldn't be, it would be nice, but it wouldn't be that different than other times in the year, because you call mom regularly, don't you? And you say, "Hi mom, I love you." And it would only be really special if you weren't doing that regularly. Well, if we think about our spiritual lives, are we calling mom regularly? Are we calling to the Divine Mother regularly and saying, "I love you"? Or are we calling mom and saying, "Mom, listen, I've got a problem. I could use your help." And we all know the various problems that we come to God with. Of course, mom loves it when you come to her with a problem, because mom wants that relationship. And this is the key thing to understand about human relationships, is that they are two-way streets. And in the same way, our relationship with God is a two-way street. And when See, Mickey, I know where Mickey's going right now. That's Mom, isn't it? Mom's going to get me some water because Mom knows what I need. And what we want to do is relate to everybody in life like that. Relate to everyone in life as if you're Mom. Thank you. See? Now, Mickey is going to be embarrassed now if I thank him. If I say, hey, Mickey, wow, you're the man, or the mom. Thank you so much. He's going to be like, don't do that to me. I didn't do it for, everybody looking at me and saying what a good guy he is. No, and Mom doesn't do it that way either, the true mom. The true mom doesn't look at the child and go, now, if I invest enough energy in my kid, getting them properly educated, and getting them to dress well and to have good manners, then my kid's going to take care of me later in life. Or my kid's going to give me the attention that I deserve because I'm the mom. When we think that way at any time in life, what we're thinking is ego gratification, selfishness. What we are saying when we feel that way is that I have done this in order to receive that. And this is what we call Vaishya, merchant consciousness. When we live that way, we are destined to be disappointed. And not only that, we will limit our ability to attune ourselves to that infinite love. And we will only experience personality love. And we know, again, how unreliable personality love is. Because how many stories have we seen in the, throughout history, about people who love each other forever one day, and the next thing you know, they hate each other forever. And couples who there was a couple who wanted Yogananda to marry them. And they came to him and said, sir, we'd like to get married. We'd appreciate it if you would perform the ceremony. And he said, no, I won't do it. And they were extremely upset. And he said, you're not compatible. This is not a good idea. And they ignored him and they went out. Or they were leaving, and he said, look, if you're going to do it, just don't kill each other. And they were really mad about that. So they went and got married by somebody, and just a short time later, they came back to see him. And they said, oh, thank you so much for warning us. Because shortly after the honeymoon, they got into a big argument, and they were starting to throw the pots and pans and getting pretty physical, and they were just at the point where they were going to begin to really hurt each other, and they remembered what Yogananda said, and they stopped. And then they, recognized that if they let themselves live in that emotional frame of mind, disaster was going to overtake them. When we live in life in a taking consciousness, in a I want my own way consciousness, the way we think sometimes of little kids, they just want their own way. Wah, 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 wah. And, they won't give up. It drive you crazy. But we live that way sometimes too. We live that way towards life thinking, life owes me. Just because I'm here, life owes me what I want. And again, if we live that way and we're allowed to, clearly many people do, it leads only to disappointment. And the great trick of life is that even when they get what they want, they won't be happy because they don't know how to be happy. Because they think that getting what you want will lead to happiness. It doesn't. Sri Yukteswar, who was what Yogananda called a Gyan avatar, an incarnation of spirit that reflected the path of wisdom. And he used the intellect to clearly differentiate what was taking place in life and how to transcend it. He wrote a book called Kaivalya Darshanam, the Holy Science. And in that book, he says, basically, after explaining all of these details, basically he says, God is love. Therefore, I have proved that God is love. And he said that you can't take a single step on the spiritual path without love. And that one of the ways that you can describe our distance from God is what he described as meannesses of the heart. Because when we act selfishly in life, our hearts are mean. We are expressing a selfishness, not love. And so, essentially, if we turn it around the other way and says you can't take a step on the spiritual path without love, that means that when you attune yourself to love, you are taking a step on the spiritual path. And this is one of the ways that people evolve, even when they're not consciously on the spiritual path. The creation is made to give us these relationships so that we learn to love in spite of ourselves. Whether we realize it or not, when you go through, 50, 100, 200,000 incarnations as a mom, you get it. I mean, you get some of it, It's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to give. But it's a mistake to think that the guys aren't moms too. Because the soul, of course, is neither male nor female. We've all been on both sides of the fence through previous incarnations. And that's interesting when you meet people, men or women. We'll take a woman, for example. I've met many women who are as tough and as reasoning as guys, or the stereotypical guy. And I've met women who were in the same way, soft and loving and not, manly. And I remember that picture of this bodybuilder, and I went, wow, he was really manly while being really tender. And this is the secret of life, no matter whether you're in a male body or a female body, is to create this balance, to create this sense of reason and feeling. Radha Krishna is spirit and nature, but it's also this duality, this reason and feeling dancing together. And each of us has that within our own consciousness. This dance of male energy and female energy, this reaching out energy, this bring it home and nurture it energy. I remember when I was married and I had children. I'm not so old that I don't remember those things. I might feel like it sometimes, but I had the good fortune of being the father of twins, a son and a daughter. And when they were first born, my wife, of course, I was, really excited about the whole thing and wanted to do everything in the best way. And so we had the children at home with midwives instead of going to the hospital. And she did natural childbirth. There wasn't any painkillers. In fact, she used Kriya Yoga to withdraw herself from the body during labor. That's a completely long and different story that I won't go into today. But, of course, natural childbirth would lead to breastfeeding. And it was my opinion that this is what should take place. But I wasn't really in charge of that department. So, but when the time came, she wasn't into it. And I was, upset by that. I was going, how could you not be into it? It's the natural thing to do. You got to do it. You don't really have a choice, And I began to be, in myself, I was really kind of upset by the whole thing. She couldn't have cared less what my opinion was. For whatever those reasons might be, we started using the bottle. Well, strangely enough, what happened as a result of that, and because I was self-employed at the time, and I had a lot of freedom in the hours that I worked, that during the day when I was working, she would feed the kids. But at night, in the middle of the night, when they woke up and wanted to be fed, it was my job. And in the beginning, I was, going through that mail, what's happened here? This was supposed to be her job. But the next thing I knew, I had two little babies that were fitting from my hand to my elbow, and figuring out a way to have two bottles going at the same time. And I was up in the middle of the night feeding these two little babies. And it became for me one of the most enriching and embracing and loving experiences of my life, for which I am incredibly thankful. And had I gotten my way, I would have missed that. I would have missed that incredible bond that I created through just being with them in that circumstance. And we so often look at life and think that if God loved me, if God is my mother, God is going to do for me what I want. And we forget that it's mother's responsibility to do what is best for me. We think sometimes that, oh no, that's what the father does. The father thinks, oh, we're only going to do what is right for him. Doesn't matter what he thinks about it. But you see, when that is done in the truest way, in the highest way, with the wisdom of knowledge, of knowing truly what is in the best interest of that soul, then that becomes the most loving thing that we can do. That's why when we think of the doctor, we don't think of the nasty medicine and cutting and doing things that hurt, that we don't like. We think of healing. We think of easing suffering, even though sometimes in the process of easing the suffering of others, we cause them a certain amount of discomfort. And there's no question that being a child can be extremely discomfortable. But all of life is our childhood. We are children of God. And God knows what we need. And God leads us through our lives in a way that gives us the very experiences that we need in order to grow in our love. Grow into that more expanded experience of love. But if we resist those experiences, if we define our life experiences as being wrong and bad, and then we go into a negative state of consciousness because we didn't like the lesson that we were given, I could have looked at my wife at that time and said, had a big argument about the whole thing. Caused a rift in the family at a most beautiful time in our lives. Fortunately, I didn't decide to do that. But we do that all the time when we reject the experiences that God gives us and say, I didn't want that experience. What, are you mad at me, Lord, for giving me this experience? Remember that each experience in life, as Yogananda said, every experience in life is neutral. It's how we react to these experiences that determines whether they lead to expansion and happiness or contraction and suffering. It's all in what we do with it. When we this is what's so incredibly exciting about the spiritual life, is that we get to consciously participate in our education. Students often complain, well, you're not teaching me the things that I want to know. Or you're not doing it the way I want you to do it. Or why do we need to learn this? I don't think I need that. When we begin to consciously enter into our spiritual education, then the Divine Mother can mold the circumstances of our lives in a way that is more consciously in harmony with our needs. When we begin to realize that everything in our lives is connected to God as Mother saying, here, let me help you grow in love. I had a very beautiful experience here in Delhi when I was teaching a course. I think it was probably in 2007. I was doing a program in Delhi, and during the program, there was an all-day kind of a corporate program, and in the afternoon, I became ill, and I was experiencing just the most intense pain in my lower abdomen that I've ever experienced. And I didn't have any reference points. I had never had anything like that happened before. So I did the manly thing and the yogi thing, which is ignore it. Until I literally couldn't. And I had to excuse myself and go to the restroom and be ill. And then I came back and I felt better. And I did this 2 or 3 times. And finally, I just literally couldn't stand the pain anymore. I had to stop. They took me, I went into the lobby of this nice hotel and lied down on one of the couches in pain. And they were sending for the house doctor, someone they were, going to bring someone to help me. And while I was lying there, the wife of the man who was the owner of the company, or the CEO, whatever, and she had come in to see this Western guy teaching the class, a little bit of entertainment. But she came over into the lobby, and she saw me on the couch, and she walked over and she sat down next to me, and she reached out her hand and said, "Would you like to hold my hand?" And in that moment, she was Divine Mother. I remember when I was a little boy and I was having some discomfort one time, and my grandmother said, "Would you like to hold my hand?" And in that moment, I realized, in spite of this incredible pain, which I later found out that I was passing a kidney stone, which is majorly discomfort, Divine Mother had somebody I didn't even know. And she had spontaneously reacted in that way. And Divine Mother was saying, "I am giving you your karma, but I'm doing it with a hug." And we can experience this hug underneath all of our life challenges if we open ourselves up to it. If we begin to, on ever deeper levels, enter into this relationship, this very personal relationship that we each have with Divine Mother. Through Master's life, what we saw was his ability to express the male and the female qualities spontaneously, without any ego attachment to those expressions. Kriyanandaji often has told the story about the disciple who had gotten into trouble. And so Yogananda, when he would get, he was such a dynamic personality that he would, walk and stomp and be theatrical. And so, but he was, when he faced the devotee, he would be, "You've got to change, you've got to," really playing it up. But when he turned around and faced the other devotee who just happened to be in the room, he'd go with a big smile and wink. He wasn't angry, but he was playing the right role at the right time. recognizing that when God embraces us with that love, which God, remember, God has no choice. This is the way God is made. We're in a good position. God must love us. God can't actually not love us. So that's really good news. But we cannot receive that love. We can choose not to say, Lord, in spite of the fact that I'm having a bad day, I love you. Because many people have bad days, weeks, years, and lifetimes, and they turn away from God. They choose not to be in tune with that love. And each of us in every moment is making that choice in lesser or greater ways. Are we turning towards God, or are we turning away from God? Into the ego, into restlessness, into various expressions of restlessness. So on Mother's Day, we celebrate mothers, our physical mothers. And there's absolutely nothing wrong. You know, think about this. Yogananda was an avatar. He was absolutely free. He was born free. And he had no personal karma. He came to uplift the world. At a young age, his mother died. They were going to the train station when he realized she had died. And he took a look at the train coming and he wanted to jump right in front of the train. Wait a minute. He's an avatar. He's supposed to be in the spine, detached. All experiences are neutral. But when we come into this world, we are compelled, even the masters to some degree, are compelled by the personality and form that they're living through to take on certain qualities. They aren't bound by them. They receive no karma from them. And of course, we don't know completely when we hear that story how much was a lesson for us versus, the actual details that took place. There's always messages in these things. But the reality is that when a master lives through a personality, they take on that personality and it has certain qualities. We have qualities in us that are, that represent the form through which we live, but they are not us. The soul is much greater than the single personality that you live through in any one incarnation. So when we look at our physical lives, we honor that life. It's appropriate to honor that life. Honor your mother, honor your father, honor your friends. But don't let that human experience limit your spirit. Use that human experience as a springboard to experiencing your spirit, your divine self. And so as we look at Mother's Day, let's appreciate our physical mothers, but live in the Divine Mother. Live in that divine connection. Recognize that the physical mother is a representative of the Divine Mother, but that the Divine Mother has representatives everywhere as well. Each of them with an opportunity for growing love, for experiencing love, for entering into this recognition that one of the very most essential components of all of life is love. This is our true home. When Master passed from this world, he said, "Only love can take my place." Let us live in that divine love. Master worshiped the Divine Mother because that was the form that he felt most inspired to be connected to. Regardless of the ways in which we worship God, love must be at the core of that worship. Love must be at the core of the way that we connect to Spirit and the way that we share Spirit with everyone that we meet. This is our prayer that we say so often, "May thy love shine forever upon the sanctuary of our devotion. And may we be able to awaken that love in all hearts. But Master used to say all true hearts. Yes, we say all hearts, but hearts that are open to that love are expressing the truth. That true love, that true heart. Let us live with true hearts in this life. And let us share that love with all whom we meet. Namaste.